Five, four, three, two, one. Let me make sure it's streaming. All right, we are live. Listen. All right, we are live. Listen. All right, we are.
It
Okay.
looks
I heard myself, so I can talk. Jason, can you say some things so we can make sure your mic is working?
yes. Let's make sure my mic is working and everybody can hear me okay.
Okay. So, Mr. Milky and everybody, how does Jason's mic sound? We are on time as always. Yeah, I tend to not be on time on my other. He sounds good.
All right.
All right, let's get started. Okay. What's up, taters? This is Tree from treeoflogic.com, and I'm here with my special guest, Jason Kuna.
Mm-hmm.
I said it right.
You did.
Yes. Listen, we got lots to talk about now. You all know how I do it on this channel. I want to be able to be focused on the person I'm talking to. And so the chat has been rigged so we keep the distractors out. However, it's not required. However, if you insist on asking a question to him or me, but mainly him, feel free to donate. Yes, you're going to have to pay me to get my attention. All right. And the link is pinned in the comment box. It's at the top of the chat box. Sorry, not the comments out, the chat box. Now listen, I want to let you guys know that I have known of Jason for several years, and we're going to talk about that. But first, besides his bio is listed in the description, I'm going to have him take the time to introduce himself, to also drop some links as well as his YouTube channel, and let him to basically just give a brief background of who he is and what his mission is. So, Jason, thank you so much. Go ahead and tell everybody tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful to be here with you. Finally, able to talk on a stream with Tree of Logic. We've talked back and forth, but never on a stream. So it's great to be here.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to be with your audience, and a big hello to everybody from my audience who's showing up today. Please share the URL so we can get as many folks in here as possible for the conversation, which is undoubtedly going to be scintillating. Now, I'm Jason Kuna, otherwise known as No White Guilt. I'm in service to white well-being for 3 decades. I've written books, given speeches, thousands of speeches, it seems, at meetings, conferences in multiple continents, and here to spread the reality, at least as we argue it, that the great evil of this age is anti-whitism, that focuses all of its hatred and victimization on the white race, and as a consequence harms everybody across the West by way of that victimization. And so that sort of in a nutshell is the quickest way I can deliver who and what I am. And you can find me at nowhiteguilt.org.
All right, that was a fantastic introduction. So let's get to my favorite part of this stream, and let's talk about how you and I crossed paths in a good way. So this was in 2017,
Yeah.
and the alt-right was basically at its height. And my friend Rage did a video called Race is Real.
Yeah.
And remember, the skeptic community was big. You remember how big they were? They were huge.
Yeah.
They were a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
And Rage was part of the skeptic community. I never joined communities. You know what I'm saying? I'll say I'll ally with you or I'm cool with you, but I never join them because I'm too independent. But anyway,
Right.
she made this video and they threw her underneath the bus. They called her racist. They called her a white supremacist. They basically clowned her. And I was like, whoa. Where's the lie? You know what I'm saying? I was like, I came out and defended her because I don't like people getting dogpiled. And they dogpiled her to the point where she stopped streaming. And I had to come to her and I say, whoa, hey, Rage, don't let these people chicken you out. And then all of a sudden, so here's where you come in. So we had 2 people defend Rage. One name was James Allstott, which I did not like the way he defended her, because he defended her but also criticized her too. He was like,
Mm.
"Well, you shouldn't have used the link from the Daily Stormer. I think that's what that site is, and you can't talk about this way." And so he was like, "You're on the right track, but bad, 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 bad." And I'm like, "Dude, F him." And
Yeah.
you came out right now. I thought you were from Georgia, because this is what I told her. Because when you came out, you did not criticized her, you did not condemn her, you praised her, you also had her back, and you told her that if she ever needed you for anything, for you to teach her more and to present that in a better palatable way, that to hit you up, and you gave your email and everything like that. And I said, "Dude, this is what I said. I said, he's from Georgia. Listen to that twang." I said, "You're going to don't go to James Allstott. Go to that no white guilt guy," right? Because you wasn't even known. If you were, I didn't know it. You were known as No White Guilt. Were you known as your first and last name back then?
Well, I mean, it was available.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
But No White Guilt was just, that's the moniker on the channel and across everything.
Okay. Yeah, because we only knew you as No White Guilt, right? And it's probably your name was probably available, and we just didn't pay attention to it. Plus, saying No White Guilt is more fun to say anyway.
Yes, it is.
So I said, "Go check him out." And I said, don't take this offensively, right? It's like, he looked like he'll F somebody up too. I said, you do. I mean this with every compliment I can muster. I'm telling you that you have a very intimidating energy about you. You look like if FAFO was a white guy, it would have your face on it. Because it's like, I just like, you look like you're the type of person that will not mess around. This is probably the reason why I never, not that I didn't feel like you was going to attack me or anything. I just felt like, well, that's not my space. You see what I'm saying? You doing your own thing. Let me let you do your own thing. Everybody has a space, so let me honor your space. But also let me send my friend there to talk to you. Now, unfortunately, she talked to James. Did she ever reach out to you?
No, never heard from her.
Yeah. I don't she spoke well of you, and she was really happy that you defended her. She was really happy that James, even though I criticized James and I did not like the way she didn't care. She was just so happy to have just a few people defend her, because even during that time, people went after Blonde too. I'm the kind of person that will, I will go, I was all, at that time, I was the one that was going to jump in and defend my white friends from other white mobs. You see what I'm saying? That's what that was my role, because I was like, you're not going to jump on them for speaking the truth. What did you think about that entire ordeal?
I heard first about the fact that these skeptics had attacked some girl out there. I didn't know who it was. And that they had dogpiled her. And I saw most of the skeptic community was really composed of these anti-whites who were trying to get better footing with the general population by saying, no, we're not just these radical anti-whites. We're skeptics. We're carefully evaluating everything. And so you can trust us in the end. And, they were just largely composed of like drug addict, neckbeard, like total anti-white scum. And all trapped in either in their mother's basement or under her skirt, one or the other. And so I took a look at the video, started watching that video that they made about her, where they were like, well, we invited her, but then she didn't come. Or like, why would she come?
Why would she? Yes, exactly.
Have a bunch of people who were and they were totally dishonest the entire time, with this claim of impartiality and fairness, and that they would be willing to look at all of the evidence and they wouldn't hold anybody, I guess, maybe responsible or slander them if they held positions or were citing evidence that they didn't necessarily endorse or whatever. They immediately, as soon as she wasn't anti-white enough for them, they went after her like animals. And they were also going after folks, other content creators, this crew and others. This is Worski, it was Andy and Chris, and their intellectual heavyweight was this this vapid, brain dead German guy named Kraut that they called him. Then there was a young black guy who was actually called Some Black Guy, I
Some
think.
black guy, yes.
Yeah.
And I made an entire video slander because hold that thought. I gotta
Mhm.
because I'll forget this. I forgot because it just ticked a memory. So we decided, I said, Rage, let's challenge them. Well, I actually challenged them. I cleared it with her first. I would never do that without her permission. I said, Rage, let's debate them. They want to sit up here and say that what your video is lies. Let's debate them. And so I
Yeah.
said, let's debate them. I want Kraut and T, and I said I want the little black one that got all that mouth, the little lesbian one. Okay, I call Derek always. His name is so black guy. He's biological male, but I always called him a lesbian because that's how B-made he is. So they agreed and they backed out.
Ah, of course. Of course. What a shock. Well, I went over and I watched her video, and then I watched their like rebuttal, their attack, their dogpiling, and it infuriated me
Yeah.
because it was the typical anti-white. I mean, I think I even pointed out at one point that Chris, and he's the Asian guy
Yeah.
there. I don't even know what there was a white girl. I can't remember her name or if they gave it. I don't even know. Was it blonde-haired young white
Oh,
woman?
I gotta look at it. It was. I gotta go check her out. I forget. There was the drug addict guy.
Oh
who,
yeah, that's right. The white guy.
Yeah, the white guy with all kind of tattoos. Jeff.
And
Jeff.
piercings. That's right. It was
Yeah,
Jeff.
Jeff. I don't know. There was a white woman. I just don't remember her at the moment. I guess my
Yeah, I
focus
don't.
was on all the men because I thought it was such a cowardice thing to do was to
It
just
was.
dogpile on a woman, a girl
Yeah.
actually. She was a young girl. She was in her
Yeah.
early 20s.
Right. Well, and the thing was, I mean, they were doing like the Chris guy. His argument was eye rolling. None of them made like an actual argument. It was all snarky,
None.
like just disparagement, vilification, and throwing around that concept that destroyed Western civilization, racist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all they had. And then their appeals to the Kraut character, the arguments that he made were all fallacious. Where he went and he said, well, I looked at this citation and here's what it says. And then I went and looked at the same citation and it said the opposite of what he was saying. Again and again. So I just put that stuff on the screen. I was like, just look at these liars. And so anyhow, I think that video, along with some of the other pushback on the skeptics, really helped to sort of initiate the downfall of the skeptic community.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Because people they don't know what started the downfall of the skeptic community. It was that incident. I'm so glad you mentioned that because a lot of people don't even realize. They think that it was because of the whole Charlottesville. No.
No.
No, not at all. It was all because the skeptics basically, hold on, not Charlottesville, something else. I can't remember, but it was all because of the yes, now it's coming to me. So people thought that the skeptic community was falling. They don't realize that it was started to fall when none of them would agree to a debate about race. Do you remember that? Like
I do.
everybody, not from the alt-right, but people who just did the research, people who knew the science, they knew the studies. They were like, okay, well, let's go ahead and talk about it. And they would never agree to it. So they were shown to be hypocrites because here it is. They constantly go after the blue-haired feminists. They always go after the people who are talking about respect my, well, not them, the pronouns wasn't so bad, but you saw people were going into the trans thing and they were like, oh, you just running from a debate. And here it is. They were doing the same thing that they were accusing the left or the SJWs of doing.
Yeah, precisely. That's because they are anti-whites, or they were anti-whites, and just trying to rebrand a little bit. But that video was, until YouTube took it down, because I shared some facts that are uncomfortable truths from science in that rebuttal, and so YouTube had to take it down. But it was my acmatic video. It had the most views of any video I had done. Yeah, I mean, and so people were sharing it everywhere. It's being shared across other platforms. It's still out there. And so, yeah, without question, it was one of, and maybe the biggest, I don't know, but one of the videos, one of the occasions that caused the skeptic community to just slide into the ocean. And that was the end of them. They didn't
Yeah.
produce anything big. I mean, that
Mm-mm.
Kraut guy tried a couple to comebacks a couple times after that because he had disappeared.
Right.
And
He
he went
came.
out and
He
like,
disappeared. But he came back as
yeah.
a video essay, or right? I think that is now. He's totally staying off that topic.
Well, the good for him. I guess he maybe got smarter. He decided to stay away from. He should stay away from thinking, and he should just. Maybe he could do videos on eating. He could do something else with his mouth. But passing words through them are not exactly the best thing for him.
So yeah. So okay. So when that happened, right? She wasn't the same after that. Because then
Right.
people started to just turn on her and start making up dirty things about her. And I I have no problem standing up for, because that's what I said. Her and Blonde were the main two of my friends that I, was viciously defending. And they even tried to say that she was doing cam girl stuff, and I said no, she wasn't. And I said,
Mm,
every time I was like, you guys always come up with lies, and all I got to do is say produce the receipts, and you do nothing. Like they're
right.
because what happened was, I think that part of the alt right began to break off in certain type of groups too, and part of them were attacking rage. You see what I'm saying? I
Oh,
don't know
yeah.
why they did, but they did. And I think
Wow.
that was her last straw for her. And I
Right.
and I was trying to convince her not to go. I was like, "Girl, they do that to me all the time." I said, I retired from domination back in 2012, and they tell me I'm doing porn. All you got to do is say,
Yeah.
"Prove it, prove it, prove it," and they can't. And I said, because
Yeah.
when they did that with her, I said, "Prove it," and they just go away. It's like
Yeah.
because I think, just like where you said nobody fact checks the source that Kraut stated, because I did too. And I got, of course, I got that whole recapping that whole thing. I got a strike on my channel, so
Mm.
I totally understand what you're talking about. All of that is erased. Where but I have it on BitChute. What about chores?
Yeah. I think mine's on my BitChute
Okay,
as well.
yeah, S-
Might even be on my Odyssey
okay,
as well.
because I want people to know that this is a part. You really should check this part of history. Isn't this crazy? I'm saying history as if this is like 20 years or 40 years ago. But I think this is a very important, because this was the, I don't know. What do you think, Jason? Do you think this is when not only the peak of, well, what's your opinion? Have we seen the peak of anti-whiteism or anti-white, or was that the beginning of anti-white?
Oh, definitely not the beginning. I mean, of course, it depends on how you're defining it. But it's not the peak of anti-whiteism until we are able to push back resolutely enough, and with
Mm,
the concepts that overcome
mm.
anti-white concepts, it'll just continue to grow in strength incrementally, as it's been for a great, great many years. Of course, depending upon how you're defining it.
How
So,
do you define it?
well, actually, anti-whiteism, which is when we talk about it in my community, again, we incur so much vitriol from a lot of what we refer to as white sympathetic people, which can be people of all races, and it can be implied or explicit.
Mm,
So, like most MAGA people are white sympathetic implicit.
uh-huh.
They don't want to talk about race. In fact, they'll say an anti-white could be attacking them and saying that they're attacking them because they're white. And an implicit white sympathetic person will say, this is not about race, as they're being beaten up. The explicit ones will talk about race. They'll say, hey, it's okay to be proud of being white and the accomplishments of white people. But they like to, the majority of these folks want to use a crutch. And that's
Mm.
why we call them, occasionally I'll mess with them. I'll call them crutchers or the crutch cult. And I tell them
Oh,
they have to get off the crutch because,
that's an
they just,
appropriate name, actually. I like
oh,
that.
it totally is. They want to I actually, I'll go even further. I'll say they ride the crutch like a pogo stick. And, but but the thing is, they wanna blame somebody else. Ultimately, anti-whiteism began when white people were by ourselves, and we slandered each other on the basis of our ethnicities. So it could be like the Irish versus the British, or the
Oh,
British versus the French, or
don't
the
forget
French
the Italians.
the
Or do you?
Italians and slandering the Italians. So when we slandered each other like that, and we tried to make these distinctions that weren't really uh, substantial. We tried to make them into something that was much more important. And we said, okay, well, this group of white people and that group, they're all inferior for these reasons. And ultimately, what we were doing was we were condemning the sons of our mothers.
Uh,
So then that made it very easy for once this anti-whiteism, once the when I say globalism here, I'm not talking about an ideology, but talking about the globalization, the ability to travel, the ability to communicate more readily, communicate ideas, move bodies across borders. Once that marched ahead and got to a certain point, it became very easy for uh, white people who were radically individualistic, and they had wealth and they wanted to make more money off of it, and they wanted to outcompete other white business people, to use these prejudices within the white race against different groups in the white race. That opened up the white race to non-white people who were also business people, who wanted to take the same advantages of all of the schisms in the white race. And so it's not something that any particular race is responsible for, or it's like their sole wheelhouse. It's an ideology that victimizes and demonizes the white race. And the way it wins in every argument, the way it advances so easily across the decades and now centuries, the way it advances so readily is that it condemns the white race for supposed crimes of the past. And therefore, it's always a retributive justice argument. So the white race in the past did this horrible thing. And so therefore, we have to have X, Y, or Z. And how this harms everybody is that, well, the white race came to North America, for example, and this is us in the States, and decided they were going to create something called the United States of America. And it was going to be another Western country, as white people make when they travel around the world. And they created this country and they gave it a border between Texas and Mexico, for example. Have a lot of problems with that border these days. Well, why is
mm,
that? You know, the arguments for why there should be a border, just like the abstractionist arguments for why there should be a border versus the arguments about why there shouldn't be one, those arguments always win. That there should be a border,
right.
that you have this contract with the government. When you're a citizen, you obey laws, and the government has a duty to you, and that
Yes.
one of those duties is to protect the border, because your citizenship is supposed to be valuable.
Right.
And so we have that social contract. Well, when you bring this argument from retributive justice against white people to that debate, you now have made it a moral debate. And morality always trumps reason and logic. And so you end up with people saying, yes, uh, the arguments that there should be a border are legitimate, but the white race set up that border. And the white race disenfranchised this group and that group because of that border is
Huh.
there.
Excuse me. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah.
Can you give me examples of the moral argument versus the logical arguments?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So essentially, in that particular conversation, in that
Mhm.
particular debate about whether or not there should be a border, logical argument would be that uh, a people takes land because they need it for their welfare, for their well-being,
Mhm.
and maybe there are other motivators, like there are unscrupulous people who want to enrich themselves by way of a country's might and this sort of thing, right? So
Mhm.
that's all logical about how that happens. And then it's worthy of being defended because it was taken with blood, sweat, and tears. So there was a price that was paid. for the land, and any surrender of any of the land could very well work to the undoing of the people who secured it. So that's all a reasonable, logical set of arguments that you can use as a
The
derivative
only
to
thing is
build
that
off of.
I don't some based upon my studies, I could be wrong. All the land was not taken with blood. Yeah?
Well, no, that's true.
Okay.
I'm saying generally speaking, because
Okay.
there were
Okay.
purchases of land as well.
Right. Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
ways that land can be acquired.
Right. Okay.
Sometimes it's not even in possession. Like you have nomadic peoples,
Yes, that
so
too. Yes.
yeah. So there are a lot of ways that land can be acquired by a country, and every group of people, every race of people has acquired land in all the ways by which it can be acquired. But then what happens in these conversations with anti-whites is they then say, well, the white race, and as we understand in the anti-white narrative, and this is not the morality of Christianity. So when I say moral here, moral imperative, I'm talking about the anti-white moral imperative.
Okay.
So they come in and they say the white race took this land and they therefore it was stolen, or therefore even if it was bought, it was illegally acquired, it was under pressure, any number of things that they could say. And so therefore, and the other argument from morality that they can make, anti-white morality, is that, well, white people weren't here first, and so the country belongs to these other peoples, and so therefore there shouldn't be a border because these people have been harmed. And part and parcel of that kind of argument is that look at how poor they are, look at how impoverished they are, look at how upset they are, look at their babies crying. And then what ends up happening is white people and good non-white people who stand with those folks who say there should be a border, this is our country, they then lower their guard. Enough of them do. They lower their guard and they say, okay, you can go ahead and win this argument. The same argument from this retributive justice, from this anti-white morality, is used in every interaction. And that's why conservatives and Republicans lose every single time. Because it doesn't matter how much reason you bring, how much logic you bring, how many facts you bring from data and etc. Doesn't matter. All of that is trumped by the argument from a moral imperative. That's what gets folks to now, not for you or not for me. We're not going to
Mm-mm.
surrender to that, right? But
Not at all.
no, not at all. But when it comes to the general population, it does for enough of them.
Yeah.
And so they lower their guard and they say, okay, you can go ahead. So as a consequence, things like freedom of speech, right to self-defense, these things were written into founding documents of the United States by white people. And so therefore, they've got to be erased. They got to be white erased. And if you take away freedom of speech, as it's chipping away, you take away the right to self-defense, you're taking it away for everyone. And so that's how everyone ends up suffering as a consequence of anti-whitism. And that's why if we can defeat anti-whitism, good people of all backgrounds coming together, we defeat anti-whitism. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is to just point it out when you see it. When somebody starts making one of these arguments, yeah, but the white race, you just say, stop being such an anti-white. We're not going to allow that here. None of that is going to be permissible. When that happens, folks have to make arguments from reason and logic, or maybe economy. And in every case, conservatives, Republicans win those conversations. Like, for example, you have the argument from the economic standpoint of, well, you should have this porous border, which is really no border, because it's economically advantageous to the United States. And therefore, but when you see people who actually have these debates about whether or not it's economically advantageous or not to have a porous border or no border, the arguments that there should be a porous border or no border always fail. They're always weak. The only time that the economic argument wins is when they hitch it to, but white people set these borders up and white people have benefited from it. It doesn't matter how many non-white people benefit from it as
Right.
well in the
Right.
United
Right.
States. It's just that white people can be victimized here. So when you realize that and you point it out to anti-whites in argument and conversation, they're obliterated. It's the tree. It's one of the most beautiful things to see their eyes just get bigger and bigger. And I'm not kidding you, tree. You're gonna love this when you start doing this. They start saying, but I got white friends. But I, but or they'll say, but I'm white. But I'm white. Like you can't be an American and hate America. They'll try to say, but I'm white, so I can't be anti-white. It's the most pathetic thing you've ever seen. And then you watch them sort of grope for something to say, for some argument that doesn't include the concept racist and evil white people and therefore retributive justice.
Hmm.
That's really what it comes down to.
What about that technique is awesome. You think, because, and this could be anecdotal with me, but shaming white people for feeling guilty of being white.
Yeah.
I noticed, and like I said, I got to be careful because it works for me. I don't want anyone to think that this may work for them, but I don't know. I know I do what works, and whenever like when a white person wants to, like for example, this just happened. Everybody was like, treat on my Twitter. My Twitter is really blowing up, by the way. Ever since I got off of, thank you, Elon. Elon took me off of permaban,
Oh,
and I was quiet for 2.5 months. And then once I started talking, boom, like my follows have doubled.
that's
Um,
awesome.
People kept telling me about this video where this white Hispanic woman called a black woman the N word, right, with the hard R, and then she got beat up afterwards. I didn't
Mm.
care about that video. Yeah, I said I don't care about that video. I said, I see these videos all the time. I said I want to see a video where a person like this Asian woman call everybody on a train full of black folks the N word and they sit there and do nothing. I said, she may be crazy, but they didn't touch her. And in
Yeah.
this video, I mean, she goes hard. The video, I've had that video on my hard drive for the longest. That video is about 2 years old. I had no idea that it was going to go semi-viral. And I got about 2,500 or maybe 2,600 followers because of that one video. But the reason why I mention that video is there's a white guy who, Mr. King of the Blacks, comes up to this Asian
Oh
woman who's
God.
using all kind of N-words and say, ma'am, could you, and I always say, I hate these type of white people,
Yeah.
these Captain Save the Blacks, Captain let me be the savior I can't say the words, but let me do it. I said, I hate these people the most.
I
So
see.
then I have some white people who says, well, I think he did what he's supposed to. I said, that's because you hate being white.
Yeah.
And I said, you're sickening. I hate white people like you. Get your mayonnaise monster butt off of my daggone replies. And they get upset. You know what I'm saying? And I say, when you can't even sit up here and let an Asian woman, which there is an incline, there's FBI crime statistics to show that black on Asian crime has escalated. This woman
Mm.
should say whatever she want to say, but I don't want to digress. Anyway, I just want to get back to I just want to get back to what I was saying is that shame. Is that just anecdotal, or it just depends on a person when you shame a white person for not only being anti-white, but also trying to put down white people by trying to elevate unworthy people of color.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely shame them. It's obviously going to be a lot stronger from a non-white person to shame a white person who's just being as white guilted as possible,
Mm,
and it's pathetic. You're right. It's a completely pathetic thing to see. In that case, it was. I think it sounds to me, like this person is like just this totally brainwashed, anti-white, acolyte of the system, and is going to come in there with this anti-white morality to condemn this language from this woman. But I would say in those cases, absolutely shame the crap out of somebody like that, uh, because that's a powerful shame is a powerful tool.
it
And coming
is.
from a non-white person, especially a black woman saying that to him, that's really going to hurt. So,
One got so upset. He was so, because the rest of them just leave it and they were fine. But listen to this argument. One person said, "Well, you don't want our help." And I said, "Did I ask your white butt for help? Did she ask you for help? Why is it that you white people want to help those who didn't ask for your help?"
yeah,
And I don't understand where did that mentality come from?
it's the anti-whitism, and we learn from childhood that the white race is awful, and that it is
Did they think to
moral.
save everybody else?
Well, they actually see it as harming themselves, and they feel like that is like the height of morality, to advance an
Oh
ideology
my
that
God.
victimizes the white race. And I know, I mean, it's like the way, like you're shaking your head there. That's what I do with all the good non-white people of the world. I look at my white brothers and sisters, and I'm just like, how can you think like this? How can it be this bad
I
for you?
know.
And it's so unnatural. And I from time to time, I give this sort of analogy or metaphor of like, if we were to look at, like I say, a group of raccoons, and they were preventing other raccoons from getting to nesting and feeding and water, so that some other animal could get at it. We would say rightly that that particular group of raccoons is insane. It's something worse than rabies, because they're not even just killing themselves, they're like killing their own kind wherever
Right.
they can find them.
Yes.
So like possums can eat or whatever, or bunnies can eat. It is insane. But it's like a joke I just told. Anti-whitism, it's like a joke I just told when I was streaming this just this week, where I said these two young male salmon were swimming upstream to go and spawn. They were very excited about this. They wanted to go and spawn and do the whole thing, and as they're swimming up, a big old salmon male comes swimming back from the other direction. He's already been up and spawned, and he's coming back. And as he swims by, he says to them, "How's the water, boys?" and keeps swimming. Well, of course, the two young male salmon, they're kind of flustered by this. They thought they were going to get there first and have their pick and everything. And so there was some thoughtful swimming there for a little while. And then one of the salmon turned to the other and said, "What the hell's water?" So that's so that's anti-whitism. I mean, we're so deep. We're so deep. We don't even like know what it is. That's what it is. We're so deep in it. It's so like the norm for everybody that it's hard to see. But once you start being able to see it, you can't stop. That's the beauty.
Yeah, yeah.
That's where the real power comes from, because otherwise, Tree, I've been in the white sympathetic sphere. I started, I don't know if you know about my book Crucible. I tell my story in my book Crucible about a junior high school in Northern Virginia. That's 7th and 8th grade. So we're talking about 11 to 13 years of age. And I was just this innocent kid. And in 7th grade, I decided that I was going to start asking why we would have like these celebrations of non-white culture, but everything about white culture was said to be evil. I mean, it was really, we were picking up on this pretty profoundly. And so I started asking, and I was just like, don't you realize that if we're saying that it's evil for white people to be proud of our history and our accomplishments, that you're saying it's moral to damage those things? The inverse of this is what's moral. If this is immoral, then the reverse is moral. And the answers the administration and the teachers gave me horrified me. I didn't have the name anti-whitism anti-whitism or anything like that. But it horrified me, because what I saw was this administration, the teachers, they knew that they were harming the white children. And by the end of, not even by the end, probably in 8th grade, I figured out that what we live in is a story. And now, or since then, I started calling it the anti-white narrative. But what we live in is a story. They take things that happen in the real world and they'll make them fit They'll either ignore stuff that happens in the real world because it doesn't comport with the anti-white narrative, or they'll even fabricate things as long as it'll work with the anti-white narrative. And then other things are just made up out of whole cloth. And I told my peers, I said, look, we, the white kids here today, are the bad guys in this narrative. The white kids who were here before us, they were the bad guys. The white kids who come after us, they will be the bad guys.
Yeah.
And sure enough, all these years later, I'm not going to say exactly how old I am, but all these years later, I can drive up to that school and the white kids there are the bad guys. It's a storyline that doesn't change. It works to the victimization of white people for the benefit of anti-whites who can be of all races, and they're all of all races. They're of all religions. They're the ones who benefit by anti-whiteism, while the white race and good non-white people collaterally damaged by the victimization of white people are also harmed by this. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so I've been in this. I started participating in different groups. Like you had Jared Taylor on ways back, and I started participating. I think it was 18 or 19 when I went to his conference for the first time. I wore my father's suit. It was ill-fitting. It was bigger than me, and
Aww.
but it was
But you dressed to
what
impress.
I dressed to impress. You're supposed to be, in suit and tie at Jared Taylor's conferences.
That's right.
And but anyhow, over time, I realized that these folks in the white sympathetic sphere, the explicit ones, even like Jared Taylor, are not aware that they are in the water. They're not. They think that they can use the vernacular of anti-whites. They can use their concepts against them. They think they can use. You see this all the time.
You think so? I think I got to defend my buddy, Mr. Taylor.
Oh well, he's my buddy too, so you can defend him all you want.
So you think he? Oh yeah, true. You think he doesn't know? Clearly he does.
Well, he knows that he won't call the system anti-white. He won't, and so therefore he's looking at the system.
What does he call it though? Does he call it not just? I don't know what he calls it. Maybe he has another term for it.
He really won't address it as an entire concept, and that's been one of my debates with so many inside the white sympathetic sphere. He will reference Marxists. He will reference communists. He will reference also social Marxists.
Does he not say racist? Does he not say they're just racist against white people?
He will say that as well.
I'm about to say, because I'm trying to. The last conversation that I've had. See, here's the thing with Mr. Taylor. They always attack him. So, like, you are here on friendly grounds. He's here with me on friendly. A lot of people, unless I hate you, like David Duke, you're gonna be on friendly grounds with me. I'm not here to come after you. So, when he's on the defense. Every time he's talking to a black person or an anti-white person who wants to attack him and call him a white supremacist.
Yeah.
So he's not so because his last conversation was a debate with what's that jive turkey fat jaw Kentucky Fried Chicken looking idiot. What his name? Anyway, he was debating with. It was so good. I did a response video on it.
That's great.
I can't remember the guy, but the black guy, he's on TYT, and he kept attacking Mr. Taylor about, well, who built the pyramids and the same old tropes. So is it? Here's my question: is it really that he doesn't use the term anti-white, or is it because he's not in a position where he can use it?
Well, I think that he feels that he is maybe almost above using the concepts anti-white and anti-whiteism. He likes to use the concepts that are used by the professoriate, and the professoriate is dominated by anti-whites.
Excuse me, Rashad Ritchie. That's who it was.
Rashad
Ritchie.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
All right. Uh, and so believing that using their concepts, I think lends credibility. I think that's the way he feels about it. In fact, I mean, the evidence is, he continues to use their concepts. And so it must be that he thinks
What,
it's,
like what?
well, like racist.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
to
what
even mention the concept racist. So we
is
say
it?
that,
But couldn't that not be racist? I mean, if somebody is attacking you because you're white, yes, that's absolutely anti-white.
well, you or I, oh, you're going to go with it and say it's racist as well? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, if somebody attacks you for being white, that is racist, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay,
You and I can say that, right? And
okay,
we could even find a dictionary that might define it exactly the way that you and I would define it.
right.
The problem is the way you and I define it and the way it might be written in this or that dictionary, it is not or are not the definitions that are material here. The definition for the concept racist and racism that's material is in the heads of the millions and millions and millions of people across Western civilization, the millions and millions of people in the United States. And where do they get their definition of racist? It doesn't come from the dictionary. Unfortunately, it doesn't come from Tree of Logic or from No White Guilt. It comes from entertainment. And in entertainment, it is always employed as something that white people do to non-white people.
Actually, now as I think about it, I had to take that back, Jason. They don't call it right racism. They call it reverse racism.
Oh, when it's, yeah, against a white person,
Yeah,
precisely.
this is
Yeah,
stupid.
that.
There's no such thing as reverse racism. I hate that term. No,
I
you're
know,
right.
me
You
too.
and I would call it racist. They would say either that black people can't be racist
Yes,
or that it's reverse racism, which is not a
yes.
thing because slavery.
Yeah, yeah. Well, of course, and that concept, which intellectuals in the white sympathetic sphere will use, reverse racism, is a great example of how well-meaning, very educated people will step right in it, knee deep,
Hmm.
when they're trying to present opposition to this anti-whiteism, because by agreeing to the use of the term reverse racism, using it, you're giving credibility to the ideology it
Yes.
comes from.
Yeah.
So that means anti-whiteism is real, and its tropes are real, and its definitions are real, and the unspoken premise that white people are naturally uh, impregnated with this evil that we call racism.
Right.
And that's what they just naturally do. And if anybody does it to them, then it is like this reverse
Reverse
thing.
racism. That's what I said. I had to think about it. I'm like, I had to think about a real time incident and in the public, and this obviously this woman was attacked for being white, and white and a black woman said, "Yeah, that is reverse racism," and I'm like, "No, that's just racism." Like, yeah, reverse. They didn't even understand what they were saying. I said, "No, it's racism. No, it's reverse racism." He got attacked. She got attacked for being white. That's racism. Well, she's white, and I was frozen, Jason. I was like,
Yeah, I bet.
okay. Also, one last thing is I'm noticing this, and I don't care if black people come for me. I don't care. What else is new? But ever since you have implemented for years anti-white, I'm starting to hear anti-black. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, wait a minute now. First it was racism. Now it's anti-black now?
Well, hey, let me tell you though. Let me tell you, you're gonna love this. All right, Tree, you're gonna love it. We want them to do that.
You
Believe it or
do?
not, we want
Why?
them to do, because it's putting the conversation, societal conversation, in our story. Because if you can have, we got to get rid of the concept racist, because it's what defeated Western civilization.
Yeah.
Not bombs, not nukes, not machine guns. The single concept racism has defeated Western civilization. So
Yes,
we've
that's
got to
true.
end the use of it, right?
Okay.
So by saying, if black people out there say, well, this is anti-black, then it is
Then you can have
per force
anti-white.
necessary that you have
Yes.
to say anti-white
Yes. Okay, I
as
get it now.
So you see, it's perfect when they, in fact, many years ago, when I was arguing for this, what we call the Go Free method,
Mm-hmm.
which is just different concepts that we use, and it's less jargon that you have to learn. The average person has to learn for work. You learn far more for policing. You by implementing these things, I told folks, I said, look, a proof of concept will be, and there's a lot of these older white guys, these seniors in the white sympathetic sphere. I told them, I said, you will know I'm right because the people who hate us, anti-whites, will begin using these concepts too. So that my idea that we can put people, the anti-whites, into our story where we are the champions will be true, that it could be done.
Ah.
And Tree, just a couple of years ago, I think it was, what was it, 2 years ago, there was a black woman who is anti-white. She actually had tattooed on herself that she's not anti-white. She had that tattooed. So we're seeing this. Yeah.
No way.
Yes.
Wow. I mean,
it's powerful. It is powerful.
Wow.
We're kicking some ass. We're kicking some serious ass.
Okay, you know what? As you break it down, I could totally see it. Because at first I was like, you guys are copycatters, you know what I'm saying? Because we understand it, and the term anti-white came first. And I started using it. Oh, ready to go down memory lane?
Yeah.
We're gonna have fun right here on this subject. Carolyn Barastinko had
Oh yeah.
Carolyn Barastinko did a video talking about how CRT is not anti-white. And of course, I don't watch the clown. Never liked her, okay? Because I don't like these blue megas, okay?
Yeah.
I don't trust them. And I got off the Trump train in 2018, but I still did not trust these blue megas. And when she started going out and saying that it's not anti-white, it's anti-everybody, I was like, what are you talking about? I said, if I show up on time, if I use proper English, then I'm acting in whiteness, and whiteness is bad, and that's anti-white. What the hell are you talking about? And so I was like, oh, anti-white. Let me make a video. And I made a video, and of course I came across your video. You are hilarious. I don't and I think that's another reason, like I said, you're very intimidating looking, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think you have to worry about, I wouldn't tell you to test this, but like if you walk down the street, I don't think nobody will really mess with you. You just have that energy. But it was refreshing that you made jokes because it was relaxing. I was like, oh, he's funny. I can listen to him. You know what I'm saying? Because he's cracking jokes.
Yeah, she actually, it was fantastic because it was at a time, Tree, where we have so many people. I got to tell you this, over the years I've been putting together the Go Free method.
Yeah.
Right. And it's still, we're still making it better and better. But over the years that of putting it together, it's hundreds, like literally hundreds of times that I've had people in the white sympathetic sphere tell me, can't be done. It's stupid. It won't work.
No,
don't do
really?
it. Oh yeah, big time. And then as soon as something works, they then say to me, you didn't do it. I mean, that's how classless these folks are, Tree. I'm serious.
But you have videos and documentations to prove that you did.
I know. It doesn't matter to these people. They're just classless scum. I mean, that's the reality.
Jealousy.
They have
Jealousy.
a vision for what they want things to look like. And when it doesn't look like that, and in fact, it's what we say here, it's based in love, hope, and redemption. They are totally affronted by that. So yeah, they'll say, so it was at a time, and it sort of plucks, it goes up and down. It's sort of like you could graph it where goes through these stages of Jason and his community hasn't accomplished anything. And then it kind of dies off. It was at one of these highs where these people
that was
saying,
you were on the map then. And I remember people were sharing your clips where you were so sarcastic. Like, I've been calling Carolyn Barastinko so much, I don't even know how to pronounce her name, but you said her name correctly. You're like, what a lovely young woman. I mean, isn't Isn't she fabulous? Such a absolutely divine.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh,
I
it
am
gets
so
it.
privileged to have Carolyn here recognize my presence. I could die happy now. It was so hilarious what you was saying. It was like, but we knew you was just being sarcastic. But it was, I think if nobody knew who you are, Jason,
Yeah.
they would have like, oh, he really likes Carolyn. What a nice young man. He's so.
That's funny.
Woo! But you would no. But I just want to amen to that. That you were big, because if I come across, by the way, I was banned at the time off of Twitter, but I was on my sock account, and your videos came into my mentions. Your videos were recommended to me. Clips of them. Excuse me, not the videos themselves. The clips from where people clipped you, and then they uploaded them. And then it came across, and it was just hilarious, actually. So yeah,
Well, good.
were you bigger after that, or was there another spurt after that?
No, yeah. I mean, we continue to grow, but she did us quite a little favor, because at the time there were people. It was pretty pronounced at the time. People were saying that the use of anti-white and anti-whitism, that we hadn't done that. That wasn't, Jason didn't do that. That wasn't his community.
But wasn't it your community that was? I
It
thought
was.
so.
It was, and it still is, and we continue to we could talk about it. But what's great is Carolyn had been going out to all of these conservative meetups, and she kept hearing anti-whitism. So she got on that video and she researched, and she said, I found where it came from, and then talked about us. So she actually did us a great favor. But it gets even better, because her husband, I don't know if this video is still up. I that would be great if it is. But she said in the one video, even my husband was saying, what's the big deal if he's against anti-whitism? Why does it? Yes. So she was pissed about that. It was even creating a divide
an
in their house.
endorsement, because he is from Mexico, isn't he? Is something like that.
Yeah.
Based Hispanics, all right.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, she could not stop talking about you. That's why I'm saying, whoever is saying that, they're just clearly deaf, dumb, and blind, because she kept talking about you. She kept talking about your community. She even stream sniped you one time.
Yeah.
So how could people deny that was your community, and that whole anti-white, the popular term of anti-white, was done by you and your community? Who could deny that?
Well, it's these people who said that it could never be done, and they told me it was stupid and don't use it. Yeah. And then when we succeeded and continue to succeed, because we get bigger and bigger personalities to use anti-whitism all the time now, and anti-white all the time now. They want to take away that credit. They want to say, oh, you've not, because they're just so jealous. I mean, we refer to them as me nots, because they're not me. And so they're just jealous of not being me. So we call them me nots. When
do you come up with this? That's genius. Me nots. Has people taken that? Yeah, I've never heard that before. Me nots. Okay, maybe you shouldn't have said that, because some people are gonna steal that too. You're not me. You're a me not. Go ahead. Listen. Hold on. I want y'all to know, Jason is going to put copyrights on that term right now. If you would like to get some copyrights, you're gonna have to pay him some money. All right. He's gonna trademark that as of today.
We even have like artistic renderings of me nots.
Really?
Yeah, people in my community, when I introduced it, I said, we need somebody to draw this, and we had a couple that were fantastic, just really goofy looking characters. We got great people, talented people. I've been lucky in that tree, in that people who have unbelievable talents where I am completely deficient have
Yeah.
come in.
Yeah.
And they it's amazing. It's really amazing. They're like geniuses in each one of their areas. And we end up chasing off all the bad character people, all of
Good.
the
Because
people,
they're
yeah, they just don't,
cancerous.
yeah, they're cancerous. They don't like our message.
Hmm.
They don't like me as a person, and they end up just leaving of their own volition. So the only time they show up is when they come to sort of slander me, calumniate, traduce me,
Mm.
and then my mods just lay waste to them. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like
Good.
total carnage, and I
Good.
love it. And the whole community likes seeing them get ruined.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was, yeah, the whole Carolyn thing is fantastic. But see, the thing is, the thing I figured out years ago when it comes to anti-whites of any stripe and of any level is that their whole agenda is is intent and functions on the fulcrum of getting white people to lower our guard,
Yeah.
for a number of reasons. So they intellectualize, they moralize, and they sentimentalize different reasons to get us to lower our guard.
Mm.
And so realizing that, I was in the, and I could just tell you just an extra 30 seconds
Yeah. Sure.
in the white sympathetic sphere. There were all of these other arguments, all of these other approaches. They were like, well, we've got to go out there and present our own messaging. And I always said, after after so many months of doing that with these folks, I said, look, we never could get to people as often as the news and entertainment media can, as the educational. So they have them their whole lives. And not only that, but even if you convince them of something with a leaflet or a mailer or a commercial or something, they know they can't tell anybody
Mm.
because everybody else they believe will disagree with them.
Right.
So I realized that to get us to lower our guard, anti-whites have to come to us and speak in a language we can understand. That means if we change the language, the concepts with which we communicate, they'll have to use those concepts. And therein lies their poison pill.
Ah.
We can poison the concepts that they will use. So if we call their behavior anti-white, if we say their ideology is anti-whiteism, whether they're calling it feminism or they're calling it liberalism or they're calling it whatever, wokeism, if we call it anti-whiteism and they have to say that to speak to us, the conversation starts with hidden premises that undermine their argument the entire time. They have to make the argument about why it's good to victimize white people, literally, physically, but more importantly here, Tree, also to victimize white people by way of white erasing our projections, which can be things like Republican government,
Yeah.
uh, and also things that we've adopted from other peoples over time that we've come to rely on and need in our lives. Because when the anti-whites attack those things, that harms everybody.
Right. It
That's
does.
why America and the UK and Canada, they're all going down the toilet
Oh, especially
because,
Canada.
oh my gosh, it's unreal. They're all going down the toilet. And here's the thing: you can say, and this is the problem, though. This is where the abstractionists come in, Tree, because they come in and they say something like, "Oh well, it's harming all peoples. We shouldn't say that it's going after white people because it's harming everyone." Yes, these anti-white ideas are harming everyone. I just made the case for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if you don't defend where they are punching you, you can't defend yourself.
Yes.
You've got to point out where you're being attacked to be able to properly defend. And the Republican
Right.
Party and conservatives, if they don't start, like there are new channels pop up all the time of like Big Con Inc. funded new content creators,
Right.
and they will talk about anything but the fact that what these anti-whites are doing is anti-white.
Right.
If they remain there, we will have the same thing we've had over the course of our whole lives, our parents' lives, grandparents' lives, which is this incremental losing until everything that we've cared about is gone. Because you cannot, it's just like being in a physical fight and refusing to cover up your face because you think it's immoral to do this in a fight. You think it's immoral to have your fists up. So
Yeah.
You're down here trying to protect your gut while they're just hammering back and forth on your face.
Yeah, crazy.
It's crazy.
It is. It's very the whole thing is important to me because a lot of people want to know, like, first of all, a lot of people don't know me. They don't know what I stand for and why I'm in this, for personal reasons. Not only because it's best for whites and non-whites, but it's just best for our society. It's best for our country.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I grew up very hard, okay? And I had the best mentors beside my aunt was two white men. And I'm told, of course, growing up the way I grew up, constantly told the white man is the bad, white man's this, white man's that. But I'm like, yeah, but there's no white men around me, yet still our house been broken into. Yes, my mom's car been stolen. Yeah, like I'm looking at all this other stuff. I'm like, well, when these white men gonna come and start doing all these bad things to us instead of what you guys are doing? Now, I'm telling you all this because I'm leading up to why it is important that somebody like me to get in there because it's in my best interest. I have four beautiful godchildren. They're white, and the oldest one, and I've been practicing it because normally when I tell this story I cry. This time I've been practicing it, so I won't be able to. I won't cry this time. But
Okay.
I was standing in her bed. His mom is my best friend. We're standing in the yard, and he just got off the bus, and he sees me, and he runs, with his backpack flapping on the back of him. He grabs my leg, because I'm very, very tall. So he grabs my leg, and he started bawling. Like, he's like, I'm a good boy. I'm not racist. He couldn't even say racist correctly. And I was like, what's going on with you? What's wrong? And it took so long for us to calm him down, to get him to explain to us what's wrong. They learned about slavery for the first time in school. And he was told that his teacher told him that because he's white, he's going to always have this DNA to enslave all black people. And then he had asked the teacher, well, even my grandmama, he's like, you just can't help it. Hey, honey, you're just white. And so that traumatized him for 3 years. It took, first of all, his parents took him out of that school. All right, we did. She did press charges against the because we had to put him through psychological therapy. But I also had to help too because I had to show him history. Like, listen, if it wasn't for white people, we wouldn't have this. And I showed him how when you and I got to be careful because this is YouTube. But we go to all of the animal preservations where they save animals and all white. I said, you notice this? You notice how? I said, you notice how they're helping the eagles and you see how they're helping these birds and they fix their wings? I said, this is your nature, not enslaving me. So it took three damn years to undo what was done in one class day.
My God.
And so when I think white people, and I will come after, and a lot of people get mad and they say, oh, Tree, you're racist. I say, damn right. I said, because if you as a white person going to sit up here and allow your own to be attacked like that because you're too weak to defend yourself and you want to be silent because you don't want to be called racist, you are a POS, and I will call you every racial slur I can, okay? Because I'm going to show you that you are just as bad as Tyrone, who wished to daggone hold up or beat me up because I'm a race traitor or whatever. You're just as much as my enemy as he is. I said, because if you saw the traumatic experience that my oldest godson had to go through, I said, you would actually want to take action too. And I think this is why I say this is personal for me, because I want to make sure no white child, and unfortunately we can't get all of them, can we, Jason? But the thing about it is that we have to stop it before others are traumatized. What do you think about, like, say, for instance, my godchild, let's say, for instance, he did not have good parents to take him out of school, to put him through, who couldn't afford to put him through therapy. What do you say about those parents who allow that indoctrination to fester and grow to where they are adults? And is it too late by then? That's the most important thing, because a part of me thinking they're too gone.
It's a great question, and thank you for helping. And of course you would. I mean, these are your
He's my
godchildren.
godchild. Yeah, I love him. I'll give my life for him. So I was like,
That's
I would never allow somebody to do something like that. So sorry. Yeah.
no, that's it's monstrous. And there are
Yeah.
videos. In fact, I have lost it over. In fact, some people have cut out some of the ones. There's one in the UK of a little girl on a I think it was a bus or train, and she was asking her mother if she was going to have to be white her whole life, and then screaming and crying and throwing a tantrum, not wanting to be white her whole life. White children are taught to hate themselves.
Right. Yes, they
They're
are.
taught they're taught to hate their history. They're taught to hate the identity of being a white person,
Mm,
and then they endeavor by every means imaginable to escape that identity,
yeah.
to become anything else, to embrace some other culture and LARP as another culture, another LARP as another people.
Right.
They harm themselves. They mar their skins. They use drugs. They commit suicide. Suicide rate among white males skyrocketing,
Big
uh,
time. Nobody
big
cares
time.
though, do they? For some
The
reason.
what can be done is with the Go Free method, and what we are having immense success. And I can talk about. I can mention a very briefly what happened with one of the women in our community and her husband and their little boy, probably about the same age as your godson there, and how the Go Free method ended up benefiting them and the rest of the white children at this school. But before even saying that, I'll say that when you use the Go Free method, it's full of what we refer to as meme curatives.
Hmm.
So these are just ideas that counter the anti-white ideas, which we refer to as meme pathogens.
Okay.
So like a sickness. And they counter them. And when you get these things to your children before they hear these poisonous ideas, they're inoculated against them, just like being inoculated against a disease. So when they go into school, and more importantly, it's not just school, it's the entertainment. That's where the real brainwashing comes from, is entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
When they then see these meme pathogens, these anti-white ideas, they don't receive them as coming from authority, as fact, as Moses, as the government. They see it as proof that what they're learning at home about anti-whites and anti-whitism is out there in the world, that they really don't like white people. They're really trying to victimize white people. And so at any age, but certainly the younger the better, you want to inoculate your children as much as you can,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're going to have them in school or private school. And I'll tell parents right now, if they don't already know, private schools, some of the most expensive, are some of the most anti-white. They can be every bit as anti-white as public schools. They can be a little
Even
less dangerous.
the religious ones, because that's
Yes.
oh,
Oh
well,
boy.
it's okay, because we are on it now with all of
Yeah.
them. We check
Good.
with the teachers. I have to show up, because I actually I want, it's like I'm establishing my authority. Like, hey, don't mess up with my godchildren. I'm not playing.
Yeah.
I don't want no more crying. And I let these teachers know, black and white, and he got one Latino. I'm like, hey, don't you ever tell my godchildren that they are bad because they're white. I don't want to hear none of this stuff about them being like
Good.
their ancestors are bad because they're white. I said, I don't play that. And I said, and I have volunteered on 3 occasions when they teach history. Okay, that's
Ah, good.
very important
Yes.
when it comes to slavery. When they teach history
Yeah.
on slavery, I want to be there, because I want to see how she's going to try to spin that.
Well,
And
good.
yeah,
Yeah. You've got to be. I mean, what you're doing
yeah,
is absolutely commendable. It should be the norm,
it should be.
but it's
Well, it
absolutely
used to be,
commendable.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
parents used to show up. Do they know they can still do that? You can actually just get it through with the student, with the teacher. The principal signs off on it, and then you just have to be on a schedule. You have to find a schedule of the teacher and what course she's going to teach. She'll email it to you, and you can just basically come in there, and they'll have you give you a pass. Do they not know that this is something that they can do and they have the right to do this?
Maybe some parents don't know, but I will tell you this: some parents in our community have endeavored to be present and to inform the education, and the schools where they're paying, private schools, pretty good money, have denied them. And so they're interrupting the teaching process, and there has to be this
Oh.
level of trust, this sort of like black box trust. Like, you've decided that your child should get an education from us, and
What
we're
do
going to
you
give
do
them.
in cases like that?
It's if you can get the child to someplace else, you should get them out of there. And
Okay.
if you can teach them from home, teach the homeschool them if you can teach them. And we have a guy in our community who runs the largest homeschool assisting program on planet Earth. It is schoolofthewest.world, and that it's a magnificent program. Folks should check it out. A lot of parents, you don't have to be homeschooling. You can be, to get the material from there, but you can also use that material for supplementing private school and public school education with your children, and you should, because everything in all of these institutions, even these private schools, they're buying their materials from companies that produce anti-white.
No way,
Yeah.
really? We're told that
Yes.
this is the safe place where.
Yeah. It's safer in that you might have teachers who are not going to be maybe like anti-Christian, and who are specifically going out of their way in a public school, for example, specifically going out of their way to demonize white people because of the affiliation with
And also,
Christianity.
they don't have to worry about getting jumped. Well, none of my.
They don't have to worry. Exactly. They don't got to worry about. So here's the thing though that happened with a woman named Heidi in our community. Her and her husband. This is fairly recent, and this is the kind of stuff, Tree, that I hear all the time. Testimonials that I hear I literally have thousands of testimonials of the Go Free method working in people's lives, and that's not an exaggeration. It's not hyperbole. Working in their lives, working with their family members, working with at work, and it's impossible to be able to bring them all to everyone. But in this case, it's a wonderful little case because it illustrates how the Go Free method can benefit a family and the community. The little boy was tasked with having her read to him this book,
Uh-huh.
and he was going to do like a little book report on it. She
Okay.
began reading this book, and the book was anti-white.
Mm.
It was demonizing white little boy, two white little boys, I think it was, or one white little boy in this book. He was the villain, and then there were non-white little boys, which were the good
Of
guys.
course.
Yeah, and so she got on the phone, and she said, I'm going to teach a parent conference. I want to talk about this because I don't want my son to have to use this as material for this particular challenge or test or book report or whatever it was going to be. And she reached out to me. She's already going free. She uses the practice in her life, but she reached out and she said, is here's what I'm thinking about saying. Does this look about right? And I gave her some other tips. She went in for the conference. I believe the principal was present as well. And she showed this teacher how the book was anti-white. She's like, okay, look
Huh.
here. It's all about and she's using anti-white, anti-whitism, and some of our other concepts in the explanation. And it's when you do this, you're coming from a place of love and concern. You're trying to end a victimization. The teacher said, never having heard the concepts anti-white, anti-whitism before, began using them and said, I had no idea the book was anti-white.
Really?
Yes, she said, I'm pulling it from the curriculum.
Ah! What?
Yes, yes. And she went on to further, she was just like bending over backwards to accommodate because of this grievous insult. She was like, look, just any book that you
Wait a
find
minute.
appropriate,
Just for pointing out that it was anti-white?
anti-white. Yep. And sharing the way we approach these challenges, the dialectics we use in argumentation,
Yeah.
very easy to pick up and use.
Yeah.
Because of approaching it that way, you're coming from a place of love. You want to end a victimization.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
so,
you are actually.
yeah, the only way that the only pushback the teacher could give in this position is to claim that the victimization should take place. White little boys should
Which
be
makes them
portrayed
the
this way.
villain.
Makes her the villain. Yeah,
That's
precisely.
oh, okay. Yes, that's very impressive.
Yeah.
And it's encouraging. I actually like that story. I actually like that experience. Where would parents right now, white parents right now, where would they get the books to help in educate their children prior to them getting indoctrinated?
Well, it's the Go Free book that they can get on Amazon. They
Is
can get
that
it.
is that one of the links you provided to me in because I the links that you provide?
Yes.
Okay, so that
Yep.
link, ladies and gentlemen, is in the description box below this video. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry,
And
go
I've
ahead.
made it super easy because I even read the majority of the books. You can get it as an audio book, but the the printed version has a big segment that I didn't read that contains a lot of meme curatives. And the book should really be treated as like a time worn Bibles are, where it's like all marked in and written in, and that's how it's intended to be used. Because
Did you ever have a Dr. Seuss book when you was growing up?
yeah,
Yeah, always had it should be because we wrote in those too. So I
yeah,
think so I would put that on par with that, like the highlights magazines. This should be a must-have in every white home. Actually, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah, and also non-white people, because these concepts, non-white people who are good non-white people who want to see an end to the victimization of Western kind on the basis of the way we're born, and also who have the self-interest of wanting to retain things like freedom of speech or the civility of the West. All of that stuff are things we want to retain in America, in Germany, in Italy, all of these different places. The only way we are all going to be able to put an end to it is to utilize the concepts that undermine these psychological warfare concepts that are used against us. Things like racist, white supremacy, and all of these sorts of arguments. It does no good. I mean, a great example is trying to laugh off, for example, taking a good non-white person who says, who stands up against anti-whitism, whether intentionally or not. This happens all the time. Good non-white people, it might be freedom of speech. You might have so you have a good non-white person who will stand up and say, no more attacks on freedom of speech. Well, that gets in the way of anti-whites victimizing white people because they want to take away freedom of speech from white people. Freedom of speech is something that white people, or at least they presume white people, instilled or enshrined in government. And so therefore it's got to go because white people did it. So they will attack a non-white person, and we've all heard it, by calling that person a white supremacist or a white supremacist enabler or a black-faced white supremacist, all of these sort of ugly terms. Well, what do we do? What do like the general conservative or Republican or patriot community do when they see it? They just go, ha, ha, ha. You know, he's whatever race he is. He's black or he's Hispanic. He can't be a white supremacist, except it works for the anti-whites because this, again, is an anti-white moral argument, an argument about a
Only if
retributive
the
justice.
non-black or excuse me, the non-white person cares.
Oh, well, but they might not care, right? But the audience, the greater audience does. That's why these things work, is because it's
Oh
always
yeah,
about
you're
the
right.
ears
You're right.
of
It
the
does
greater
work. It
audience.
does work because I am I've had so many people send me emails saying, "I'm so sorry that person called you these bad words." Like, I don't care. Why are you letting it affect you? I
You're
don't.
like,
Not losing no sleep over it. But it bothers
yeah,
them though, right?
it bothers them.
Mm.
And so if this non-white person had come across the Go Free method, had come across, or indirectly by way of us spreading these, because that's one of the powerful things that we all can do, even if you're not using the Go Free method in your life, is to take some of the concepts and just use some of them. Because as people begin to use those, it changes where the conversation takes place. So that guy in our scenario here, our fictional scenario, if he were to say to his detractors in that moment, oh, they're just anti-whites. All they want to do is victimize white people. That's why they're criticizing me with these anti-white slurs. That immediately negates what they're saying in the minds of that greater audience. It shuts them up immediately. It's a beautiful thing. So white people definitely should be going free and using these concepts in their lives, teaching their children these things, because even if their child is homeschooled, he or she is going to go out into the world. They're going to see the billboards. They're going to see the commercials on TV. They're going to see the movies. They're going to become an adult at some point and want to leave the home. And even if you have insulated them the entire time, they're then going to go out into the world and they're going to see all of this extraordinarily powerful propaganda, which is in the entertainment. And if they are not prepared, knowing what anti-whitism is and what anti-whites are, they will fall for it. You can look all over the white sympathetic sphere, the explicit white sympathetic sphere, for parents of organization leaders and content creators, Tree. And I can say this from deep experience over the years. And their children, they should be like the most fervently for white people, right? They grew up in a house where there's somebody studying it and talking about it and giving
But
speeches.
I make
No,
sure, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
no, it's all right.
I make sure I'm very careful with my godchildren, and I let them know, cuz blacks are tribal, and I let them know you cannot express this to anyone, even other white people. And I teach them, like, you gotta read them and then slowly fill them out. Now the two youngest ones, that's over the head. They don't understand yet.
Right.
But the other two older one, I let them know, because they're so happy that when they find out that they're not the villain, they want to
Yeah.
go and tell the world, which will make them the villain in these other people's eyes. And I let them know, you can't go out and say this, that, and for example, the second oldest one wanted to know why my hair. People don't know this is dreadlocks. This is my actual hair. He wanted to know why my hair was this way and why his hair was this way. And I
Mm.
had to actually take a map of the world and explain to him about
Yeah.
the distance
Yeah.
from the sun. Actually, and shout out to Mr. Jared Taylor, took one of his videos explaining, the scientific version of, well, you have white people here in this part of Europe. The air is, what is it? Is thinner, right? It's
And the temperature's cooler.
the
Or
temperature
way
is
cooler.
cooler, so
Much cooler.
therefore lack of less vitamin D. That's the reason why their hair is blonde. That's the reason why their eyes are blue. This is the reason why their hair is thinner down
Yeah.
here and down in Africa. We're constantly near the sun, and
Yeah.
that's the reason why our nose is the way it is. I had to break it down, but even something like that is considered racist to whites and non-whites who are into the anti-white indoctrination.
Yeah. Yeah. Any discussion about, and it's all of these like curious difficulties, and cumbersome speech, cumbersome education are a result of where there are double standards and
Mm-hmm.
hypocrisies on the level, on the surface, that are created because underneath everything is aiming to victimize Western kind and the things that white people create. So you have to be able to say that in one case, oh, it's a wonderful thing that this group over here celebrates their identity, their culture, their history, etc. And in the same breath say it is an evil thing for this group over here to do the exact same thing.
Right.
So talking about the differences in race is laudable if white people are not part of that conversation, and it is to the benefit to claim that essentially it's kind of like it's really off sort of way that they say this. It's like we're all equal, but non-whites are superior. So if you're making a genetic argument about why there are differences to the conclusion that non-white people are better, that argument is considered laudable.
Mm-hmm.
They will extol that position. Professors will talk about that at universities,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they'll have large audiences. If you go there to a university and you're not going to come to the conclusion that a conclusion that victimizes white people by saying that non-white people, everybody's equal, but non-white people are superior. If you're not going to come to that conclusion, if you're just going to speak about, hey, there are differences because we were all from these different
Yeah,
areas,
there's
and it makes sense.
differences and genetic advantages in every race. That's the
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
Yes, yes. If you were to do that, they'll shut you down. And of course, we see that all the time at universities where they physically attack, they set fires and everything else, pull fire alarms,
Mm-hmm.
hecklers veto in every single case.
Right.
So they, when it comes to that sort of conversation, anti-whites won't tolerate it. You're not victimizing white people in the conversation, and therefore, the conversation about differences is impermissible because immoral. So it's where you have this double standard on superficially. But in both cases, you see, in one case, you can't have the conversation because it's immoral. And in the second case, you should have the conversation where non-whites are said to be superior because it's moral. Those are obviously contradictory. But if you stop there and you're just seeing that, well, that's a double standard,
Yeah.
then you're not seeing all the way to the base, which is that both of those positions arrive at anti-white conclusions.
And this is the reason why I'm very careful, because it does worry. It does worry my best friend, their mom. It doesn't worry their dad. You know, he's cool with it. He loves when I teach them different things. But but I also am aware that their white friends could have been indoctrinated, even if they are going to the same school. I just have to let them
Yeah.
know, like, you have to be careful what you say. And I'm constantly, when I talk to them, hey, what did you do today? What did you talk about? How did he react when you said this? Blah blah blah. So it's I think when it comes to how do we fix this, my method is a little different. Whereas if you strengthen the whites, everybody else will follow. Unfortunately, there's such weakness, and I think that's the reason why everything else has fallen to the wayside. And the reason I came to this conclusion is I just looked at history. That's all I
Yeah.
did. I just looked at history. And everything was in order during that time. And when I was part of the whole mega crowd before I got off the train, people asked, well, when was America great? I said 80s and 90s. Okay, 80s and 90s was great to me. I'm like, you had your diversity, you had your representation. Nobody was tripping. Gay. I was amazed. There was a gay person in the movie. Oh my God, I forget the movie was. I was like, I didn't even realize he was gay, because when I saw the movie back in Airplane. You remember Airplane where the guy
Yeah.
pulled? He's obviously gay. When I remember when I was a young girl saw the movie, I didn't think that. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, he's so goofy. But now that I'm older and constantly getting the LGBT thrown in my face,
no.
it's obvious now. But look at back then when Airplane came on, right?
Yeah.
He was flaming gay, and we thought it was funny, and we never gave it a second thought. That was in the 80s. So
Yeah,
I'm trying to think, like, yo, back then we never made a big deal out of it. Now we got to make a big deal out of it. Everybody's special treatment, everybody's diversity. Victimization is the new black, and everybody's want to wear it. That's the problem. And lastly, I just said, if we could get white people to just stop going against their own, and here's the thing, white people don't think as a group. That's why I know what you were saying. I know that you were saying, like, we got to get non-white people. I'm over that. I'm like, nah, because they're tribal. Okay, I'm over that. I'm like, let's get the white people to stop hating each other and see themselves as a group. And then everything else will fall by the wayside.
Yes.
Everything else will fall in place. Sorry.
Without question.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest challenges, of course, is to get white people to think as a group. And that's another aspect of the Go Free method that for many years back, I realized that white people were radically individualistic.
Yes.
In my opinion, especially since we're on YouTube, in my opinion, we are the most individualistic of the peoples of Earth. And maybe I'm wrong, and people can check it out. I'm sure CNN will be there for them to give them the truth. But We're radically individualistic. So when folks in the white sympathetic sphere, uh, they they thought about, well, what kind of slogans or what kind of message or what kind of, and in all the messaging and all the slogans, uh, it was always about white people having to see themselves as a people. And I said, they don't see themselves as a people yet. So how can we get from a place where white individuals are only considering their own ass and maybe at most the immediate family, and never the larger group? How can we get them to conclude
Mm,
that their well-being is only attainable by way of our group's well-being?
mm.
And that is, of course, by forcing them to recognize, and this is what anti-whitism, and some other of our concepts do, forcing them to recognize that their victimization is a consequence of their allegiance, or being a
Yes.
part of this group that's being attacked.
Right.
When they talk about it this way, they will end up backing themselves into an understanding which otherwise would be offensive to them. To general white person, they just find it offensive to even think collectively. So you need to kind of back them into it for them to understand that, hey, your well-being is only going to be attainable if there is a well-being for the group. And by getting them to focus on the fact that white people as a group are being victimized and that there's no escape for them. They're not going to be able to just get out their resume and work for the anti-whites,
True.
or move to a nicer neighborhood, because this is
Yes,
what
that
white people do.
too, the white flight.
Yes,
Because they'll come for you where you live at now.
exactly. If we have to be able to get them to see that group, and that's part of recognizing the victimization as a group.
Yes.
So the more we get these concepts out there, the greater good they do. And that's why I'm always, the celebrations that we have when, content creators start using some of these concepts, when they use like Western kind, for example, to talk about white people in general. That is cause for a massive party, because if white people start saying generally Western kind, that is much more associated with a people. What do they do? What does that all entail?
Mm.
They'll begin asking those questions. Where do they fit into that people? You see, all of this is baked into the cake from the beginning, so that as it grows, as we reach more folks, it unfolds into greater and greater benefit. We just have to get it out to people. And part of that problem is the fact that we've got so many. Not only are we censored by anti-whites on the platforms and everywhere else, but we are censored, Tree, you wouldn't believe it, by white sympathetic people. Big time. Big
Right.
time.
How?
Because they're jealous, because of how jealous they are of our success, because of how much.
Then they're not sympathetic.
I know it. I know it. And in fact, Tree, one of the big groups that is, it's their members. It's like probably 90% of their members are fervently opposed to me and the Go Free method and my community. Their leader said that it was more important to hate Jewish people than to care about white people. He actually said that.
I'm not
And so,
surprised. I'm
yes.
not surprised because it's a distraction. When you can distract someone from, like, if like a marathon runner, right?
Hmm.
If you push the finish line way over there, and then have them waving red flags over there, they're confused. They're like, well, you took your
Yes.
eyes off of the goal, okay?
Yes.
So now you don't know where you're running to. You don't even know where the end game is.
Hmm.
And yeah, I agree with that. You um I think, and I could be projecting here,
Okay.
I think you are at your best when you're not grand. Hmm? You know,
But I'm not what?
when you're not big.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Um, because I have changed a lot by you have an excellent community. Like I said, I've come and watched you, and I just watched. You know what I'm saying? Like I said,
Yeah.
I just like Black Lives Matter have their spaces, you know what I'm saying? Then you have your German people have their spaces, and you have your Russian people have their spaces. You know what I'm saying? I think those who are fighting against whiteism have their spaces. You know, it's needed, and I think it should be respected. It's not saying it's anything. I'm not saying some people, anyone is not allowed. I'm just saying like men. I grew up. My father raised me from the age of 11. You know, when I ran away from my mom from the ghetto. So I saw men have their own spaces, and I've
Hmm.
seen where men. My dad would every other Friday or Saturday, him and his buddies would go down in the basement, smoke cigars, drink beer, watch the game. You know, it just even if they have a fight, they'll go outside, have a fight, hug it out, and then go back down there and bond again. It's a bonding. We have gotten to the place where that is no longer allowed if it doesn't include diversity. However, if you're a person of color, you're allowed to bond without any white person being part of your group. And white
Yeah.
people are okay with that. I got a problem with that because if white people are not allowed to have their own group without anybody interfering, then why is everybody else allowed? I don't like hypocrisy, and I think with you, if you and like I said, I'm projecting. If you get too big, then you'll have so many people coming after you that it will
Yeah.
destroy all of your hard work that you created.
Yeah, that's entirely possible, and it might be just like in the cards that we're going to be the engine that sort of feeds the bigger personalities,
Yes.
and then as they feed these concepts out into society, concepts, by the way, that work in all the Western countries, even where English is not the language. It's amazing because, and the reason why it works is because anti-whitism is the same.
Right.
So if you have the same disease everywhere, then the single cure is going to take care of it. And they seed it out to the population, things will begin to turn around, and it will seem, and it's already happening. It will seem like it's almost like magic
Well, you
because
are effective though. You do see that you are extremely effective.
oh
Yeah?
yeah,
You see
oh
that,
big
yeah?
time,
Okay, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Every encounter, and like I say, the testimonials coming from people, and when we have news, when they write news items up about us, even in other Western countries with different languages, they fall into the trap every time that we've made for them to fall into. So it's the kind of thing, and we call it a curative contagion because it works. So people are naturally going to adopt. There's going to be a little bit in the more like traditional, say, conservative or Republican circles where there's going to be a little bit more pushback there
Mm.
because of how afraid they are of talking about race. But in the
Well, we got the
greater,
cowards on the right.
oh, I know it, the greater sort of alternative news, and out on the internet, people will be willing to take this up, and folks, in their lives, with their families, and that's one of the ways that a lot of people come to the community. They find out about us, they show up, and they've got a problem in their life, like they know something's wrong, but every time they get into a discussion with the wife or the father or the sibling or whatever it is, they lose,
Mm,
and it's making their life tough.
mm.
And as soon as they start to learn the go free method, they take it's so cool, Tree, because they'll get like one concept and they're like, I'll go use that, and see, that's curative contagion. So they take it back to the person they're having these discussions with, and then they lay it out, and they see how it dominates, how it totally cripples the anti-white, and they come back. This is how so many testimonials get written, and they're like, you wouldn't believe it, but I tried this out. It works. It works exactly as they
Yay!
say.
Woohoo!
So I know it's fantastic. So that might be our fate, and I'm good with that because it's gonna make a better world. I would like to make it better faster,
It's you and
because
I both.
I know, but at least we're going in the right direction now for the first time. Nothing has everything, every institution, Tree. You think about it, Catholic Church, Protestant Christianity, the lodges, the military orders, everything, the fraternities, they've all fallen to anti-whitism. They all preach and teach and coach anti-white ideology. You can't find, and those are the things for which if you run afoul, you get punished. It's at every single workplace. I mean, you think about it, and here's something that I definitely want to leave you with, so you can see the difference in mindset. When you see these companies talk about, hey, this quarter we're going, we have this big diversity push, and then at the end of the quarter they come back and they say, look at how much we've increased diversity. What we do is we say, look at how many white people you got rid of. There aren't an infinite number of jobs, right? There's a finite number of jobs. The only way you could increase, and how are they defining diversity? First of all, that's immoral because it doesn't include white people. Diversity is just another word for non-white people.
Right.
So they go and I and the people in my community, we're not against non-white people getting a good job,
Right.
or even
but
if
not at the expense of you getting fired. You see what I'm
yes,
saying?
exactly.
And
So
and if you do, guys, sue. I don't know if I'll send you the link. I'm so proud of this guy. He got fired for being white, and he was replaced by a black woman and a white woman, and he sued, and he got I think he got $30 million or something like that, because he proved it, because they said, we need to remove you because you're a white male, and we need a diversity with a woman and a black woman, and he got bank. You know what I'm saying? Because the equal opportunity also is extended to white people as well.
It's supposed to be. I mean, on the books of law.
But they gotta go and pursue it. This is the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, this frustrates me. They just sit there and let it happen.
Because they know ultimately we find ourselves in courtrooms where we lose. I mean, this is why lawfare is so effective, is because so many, we talk about nodes of power are held by anti-white people, and then juries are populated by the run-of-the-mill vague anti-white people. You know, they've grown up in anti-whitism. They know how bad the white race is. And so when they get an opportunity to sit on a jury, what do you think is going to come out of that sort of scenario? The vast majority of the time, it's going to be an anti-white conclusion. So white people.
Then I will put a seed. Let's see if it will grow. Then maybe there needs to be a white version of the ADL.
I can't hear you all of a sudden. A white version of what?
The ADL.
Oh, yes. That would be. Well, we actually kind of functioned like that just a couple of weeks ago. Because,
really?
Yes. It's the first time that anything like this has ever been done. You think about like all these big groups, these white sympathetic groups, nobody has ever done anything like this. So we the kind of things we do in people's lives, never been done elsewhere. Everybody else, all these other groups, when they take what they learn in these groups to their families, they're ostracized. They can get fired from their job. We have the exact opposite happen. We have people changing the views of their entire family members who are anti-white. But this is something that also has never been done. iHeartMedia ran a news item, and this was just a couple of weeks ago. Do you remember the black teenage boy on the bus down in Florida who beat up a white presenting Hispanic little girl?
Yes. She was young too. She was 9 years old.
9.
Yes, I do.
So he beats her up on the bus. That's videotaped, right? And on the internet, people were taking the actual video. They were blurring out the faces of the children.
Actually, they did. Oh, I remember this. Another thing too. They also did an article where they put a white child to represent the black guy who beat up the black boy who beat up that little what, I don't even know what her race is.
She's Hispanic, but she looks white.
Yeah, she does look white. Well, wouldn't that make her a white Hispanic? Does she identify as a white Hispanic?
I guess it would come down to how she identifies.
Yeah, that does. But yeah, so an anti-white, racist, pro-black, very hefty woman, okay, was a journalist who did an article and put a white child pretending that was the one that did the beating up.
Well, I'm going to finish that story for you. Are you
Oh,
ready?
is it in reference to that?
Yes. Are you ready to find out the rest of the story?
I'm ready for this one.
Here's the rest of that story. So they put iHeartMedia, that's who she worked for. They put that picture up of the white little boy, like a actor, in a photograph, like a stock photo.
Yes.
I tweeted about that in my community, and we and my community wrote about it from the position of love, wanting to put an end to the victimization of white people. And this, of course, was misrepresenting white little boys as victimizers when there was no need to do that. You could use these other pictures, right? I tweeted about that, and my community was passing it on, and the tweet was growing. I reached out to iHeartMedia by way of an email, and I used the verbiage that we used, the dialectics that we used in an email to them, and I demanded that they change the photograph that they were using because it was demonizing white little boys, and that we would make sure that the entire white population of America finds out the kind of organization that iHeartMedia is, that they're targeting white little boys with this. They wrote me back within a couple of hours, and they said, well, we take this very seriously. We're going to look into it. By the next day, the picture was changed to a school bus.
So they don't get a stock footage of a black boy, right? They just take it to hey, baby steps, right, Jason?
Baby steps.
Baby steps. A school bus. Baby steps. I had no idea that was the case. Cause hold on. And by the way, we're gonna wrap it up. This is the last thing I want to talk about. Oh my God. Can you understand it's 7:50? Can you believe we talked that long? Okay, so this is the last thing I want to say, and then I'm gonna let you.
Right.
I'm gonna let you have the last. Well, I'm gonna let you wrap it up and everything like that. But but this is when I put that out there. Of course, here go me shaming white people. Tell myself, well, you can't, because I dragged her. I dragged the people. People always say, well, Tree, they call you mean words. I said the words I can call them hurt them 10 times as much as what they call me. Trust me. It hurts them so bad that white people insert themselves in there and like, don't have to call her that. You don't have to call him that. This, that, because I get vicious, but I get vicious with white people too. Okay, since if people think I want to get vicious with black people, you just don't understand. I get vicious with, and if you get in my way, I'll get vicious with you. And the thing about it is that these white people were like, well, you can't call her those nasty names. She has no control over the stock footage. This was done by the school, and I was like, shit, I'm not going to repeat what I said, but I called him names, and he was upset, and I said, listen, stay out of my way when I'm fighting. I don't need you to tell me that my sword is too sharp, okay? I said, as long as it's done, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. I said, sit your ass over there and make me a sandwich. You know what I'm saying? But I was so disgusted with what she did, or if she did it or not, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? She should have never wrote the article in the first place, because I was reading it and I was like, well, this is not actually, if the reason why I was attacking her more than anything else, and then I'm gonna end this. The reason I attacked her more than anything else is because had that boy been white and that girl been black, that same journalist would have been white supremacist, racism, America, okay? Yeah. They would have put all 3 Ks in there. They would have talked about how slavery and oppression, and they would have just basically just tore that up and said, we need a daggone march on the streets again, reparations. But because it was done by a black child, which is normally the case, and of course I got to be careful, it's just brushed over. Yeah.
Shamefully so. And that's because of the anti-whitism.
Yeah.
And how thick it is in American society and the rest of the West.
Right.
Well, Tree, this has been absolutely
Jason, my apologies for, I told you before we got on, I said, hey, How long do I got you for? Because I know I was gonna have fun talking with you. So
No, it's hell of a lot of fun.
yeah, it was fun, wasn't it?
Yep.
So let's, and I want everybody to know this is shared copyright. So we're gonna basically take parts of this. This is gonna stay on the channel. But I want you all to know that all of Jason's links is available underneath this video right here. So Jason, go ahead and take us out with some last words, and also don't forget to plug where people can find you, and also include your Twitter handle as well as your YouTube account, your YouTube
Yeah,
profile. Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you so much. As I said, this was a hell of a lot of fun. I loved coming on here with you. I'd like to do it again
Yes, absolutely.
whenever. Yeah, when I'm sure people really enjoyed watching the conversation as well because it was so much fun.
Yeah.
If folks can find me, knowwhyguilt.org. That's the website. You can also find the different collectibles that we have, like books and the rest. You can find that at knowwhyguiltcollectibles.com. All my links are at knowwhyguilt.org/links. No White Guilt on YouTube, No White Guilt NWG on Twitter. I am, let's see, newly on a couple of different, Truth Social platform, newly there, and I'll be sharing that link shortly. But come on over Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time is when we do our big Going Free show. I will stream throughout the week here and there, but that 5 p.m. show is always on the dot, and it's usually for about 4.5 hours. We take calls at the end. We have a heck of a lot of fun. We teach from the Go Free method. I address the news from the point of the Go Free method, and thereby it's easy to pick it up. If you want a book with a signature in it, then you got to go to the collectibles store for that. Otherwise, you can get it at Amazon, and we've made everything eminently affordable. And of course, there is now the new audiobook for Go Free Second Edition Iteration 2. And come on over and you'll get to find all of these other personalities, magnificent performers of various types who are contributors, the great Brant Danger, the great Four Null. We have these things called Going Free clubs that if you're interested, you can get involved in. So come check us out, and we look forward to seeing you. And I would love to come back whenever you'll have me, Tree.
Absolutely. We definitely going to do this again. You're going to probably be like an ongoing guest, just like Mr. Taylor. When I have fun talking with someone, I definitely invite them back. So
Cool.
consider that a definite. Guys, I
Cool.
want to thank you so much for those of you who are in my chats. Thank you so, because I got my personal chat on my website. They are loving this conversation. So those of you on YouTube chats, I know I'm getting a lot of people who are angry that they couldn't comment. It's in my best interest that that happens. But thank you so much for watching. And like I said, feel free to check out Jason and all his links below. And I'll definitely have him come back on here again. With that being said, thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you
Yeah.
guys next time. Later, taters.
Bye-bye.